Yeleni, I cannot hear you anymore, so since you started recording.
What?
And now you're back.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, sorry everyone. Okay, let me try again. Welcome everyone to today's Tech Day session with Cloudflare. We are joined by Vincent Barida, who will be taking us through the DDoS defense strategies, safeguarding African IT infrastructure. So I do believe this is quite an exciting topic. Before we get started with Vincent, just some housekeeping. So at the bottom, you have the Q&A section. We kindly ask you to type any questions you might have for Vincent in this section. We also do have the chat functionality on also at the bottom if you'd like to say hello or have a side chat. And I think that's about it. So yes, please ask questions. Um, and yeah, that is it for today. Vincent, thank you so much for joining us today. We are really looking forward to what you are going to show us today and hopefully learn some new things. So over to you.
Thanks for the introduction. So yeah, my name is Vincent. So I'm a principal solution architect for Cloudflare. And today we're going to look into the latest DDoS threats, and the strategy that you can put in place to protect yourself and your infrastructure against this threat, and especially how it applies when your infrastructure is based in Africa, and more specifically in South Africa. It's a short presentation, so it's 15-20 minutes, and we have some time at the end for Q&A if you have any question. So at Cloudflare, we'll see a lot of traffic. We'll have a lot of customer, and we have all this insight to see what's going on and what happened in the term of threat and the different type of attack that happen and evolve, through the time. So a few months ago, it was an article that caught my attention. So this article was about like an attack, an IoT attack, a new type of attack that was reported in Switzerland involving connected toothbrush. So it was a bit surprising to have, because it's not the usual type of device that you see involved in attack. And before you go on and chuck away your connected toothbrush, this attack didn't happen. It was like a mistranslation and turned out to be a fake news. So the connected toothbrush wouldn't make a good IoT botnet, usually connected via Bluetooth. So you tend to have something using Wi-Fi at least and a more CPU power. So doesn't mean that we don't see IoT device used to provide attacks. So the most notorious one was the Mirai botnet. So the Mirai botnet was a botnet infecting ARC processor IoT devices. So the devices that were corrupted by the Mirai botnet tend to be baby monitors, network routers, CCTV cameras, some smoke detectors, and they were used by the attacker to generate attack. But what are the new threats? So we know the Mirai botnet, we know the usual botnet that were used to carry these attacks. But now there is a change in the way these attacks are provided. And on the left-hand side, on this slide, what you see is that inside of a hyperscaler data center. So hyperscaler have this shared security model. So where on one side, the hyperscaler is responsible for the underlay security, making sure that your virtual private network doesn't interact with the VPC of another customer. But the responsibility of securing like the public facing services, the virtual private server, it is down to the user or the company consuming the product from the hyperscaler. And that what we see is a wide range of security practice being enforced on this level, especially when you see that the cloud can be used for development purposes, for practicing, for demo. So quite often the security best practice are not applied. And we see these new trends of botnet, where we have a virtual private server that are hijacked by attackers and that are used to launch attack. So that means like the power being available for the attacker is a lot higher. So a few minutes ago, I talked about the Mirai botnet. So the Mirai botnet, what we tend to see is like 1 to 2 requests per second max per infected device. A virtual private server can pick at above 5,000 requests per second. And on one hand, the Mirai botnet tend to use HTTP, so non-encrypted attack, where a virtual machine has a lot more CPU power and can provide a lot more complex, a lot more variety in the signature and also encryption utilizing the CPU power. So it's attacks that are a lot bigger with smaller botnet and also more complex with more security power. So that's the evolution that we see in the botnet on what is used to provide this attack. On the right-hand side, what you see is an interface that we grow familiar lately. So it is ChatGPT. So this is an interaction that I had with ChatGPT. So as part of my role, I'm a solution architect. So I talk a lot about DDoS protection, and I show demo as well to our customers that want to see, how our solution reacts when there is an attack. So this demo, so I wanted to show is we have like a new mitigation tool that protects against attack exploiting DNS services. So this attack that we've seen in the last few years, it's an attack we call like DNS laundering. So it's when you use a trusted resolver, so something like the Google DNS services or Lumen or even Cloudflare, and then you ask this trusted resolver to resolve a lot of fake subdomain. So you have your domain, and then you spoof the subdomain. So you send all these requests, these random requests, and then this resolver, because obviously this fake subdomain is not in the cache, will generate like a request towards your DNS server, authoritative server, which is hosted on site. So having too many of these requests will crash your DNS server. And it's very difficult to block because obviously it's coming from a trusted source. So that's what I asked ChatGPT. So I asked ChatGPT, could you write me a script to generate like 10,000 fake subdomain to this domain towards like a trusted resolver? And ChatGPT replied, no, it's not something I'll do for you. This sounds malicious and could damage like the infrastructure that you're targeting. So I was like, yeah, fine. It's like some security practice, quite evolved in terms of requests. So I was impressed that ChatGPT recognized that and refused to do it. But it only took one extra prompt, was to ask like, hey, don't worry, it's just for a demo and I own the domain. And ChatGPT just gave me the script to launch this attack. So this is a bit anecdotal, but it shows the way this tool can provide capability to traditional cyber criminal and capability that are a lot more evolved, and then you can go beyond, right? So that's just like something I did for a demo. But what we've seen, for example, if you can take like available scripts that are made for Mirai botnet, for example, you can also ask ChatGPT to make the traffic looking more like genuine traffic, to use a lot more different signatures. So kind of like state level capability now in the hand of traditional cyber criminal. And that means that we also see attacks getting a lot more complex recently. So which type of industry are getting attacked? So this is a map. So that's something we release every quarter. So we release like a DDoS threat report, and that is for Q4 2023. And that was the industry that were being attacked the most. So in Africa, we see it was cryptocurrency. In Europe, we see gaming and gambling. We see like quite often a bit of change in terms of like industry. Obviously, like finance is always something that is targeted. Telecom provider. So that was, for example, in Q3 in 2023, that was the most attack infrastructure in Africa. And essentially we see like different type of attackers. So what we have is we see like, for example, more like traditional like cyber warfare. So when you have like a country attacking each other, you know, when there's a geopolitical agenda or tension between countries, so that are state level based attack. We also see hacktivists joining in, usually also when there are tension between different countries or for political reason attacking the target. And the final two is like more like cyber criminal. So the one of them that we see is like when people attack, you know, for example, you are receiving like an attack on a Friday afternoon, typically before a long weekend, and you get like a note on email saying like we are the group XYZ and you've been attacked and you have till Wednesday to pay 10 Bitcoin, you know, or we send you like an attack that's going to be like 100 times larger by if you don't pay the ransom. So this ransom DDoS attack is something that we see being used a lot, and what we see is like quite often it's a specific vertical being targeted. So we've seen like a trend with voice over IP provider, finance provider, and we'll see that moving from region to region. Usually, you know, they start like let's say in the US and move to EMEA and Asia, so they target like some verticals, and then we'll see this spreading across different regions. The last type of attackers or kind of attackers that we see, and I imagine for me that sounds like this the most unfair, is when you are targeted, not specifically for what you provide or to bring your service down, but used as a showroom for the attackers. So we see like some attackers, for example, they take like a household name, something like they know that is going to be reported in the press. If you have a reputation like a bank or a government, and they will send an attack and try to bring it down. And what they do after that, they use that as an advertising platform to sell the tool that they develop, to sell the DDoS tool on the dark web. So it's like, look, you know, we raise a tool, you know, that has brought down, I don't know, the visa system of a country, and now for, you know, $20,000, you know, you can use that to attack anyone you want, you know, and use our botnet for this. So that's the last type of attackers that we see, and the type of threat we're seeing on the market. Another map, so this time is coming from Cloudflare Radar. So Cloudflare Radar is a tool that we have, so it's publicly available and let you view what we see at Cloudflare. So we have a lot of customers, and we provide near real-time visibility on what kind of traffic we see and what kind of attack we see. So here, what we're looking at is for the last 2 weeks, the attacks targeting South Africa. So we see these attacks coming from different parts of the world. So usually the main source of attack are places where you have a lot of compute power. So the US, China, Southeast Asia, also EMEA, Europe, you get like as a source of attack. There is a change of trend. We see also a lot of attack now coming from South Africa. So it wasn't the case if you look back, at the data a year or two ago. And that's also something that comes with the availability now of cloud services in the region, and also the potential of a hijack a virtual private server. So that could be a link to have now attack coming locally. So it also has an impact in the strategy or how you block these services. So before, you could get away by having just like a normal protection across the world and just like a very small presence in a region. But now you need to have something significant, because you'll see some of the attacks, some of the large attacks can also be locally provided. So it's a change of trends. It's not everywhere the same, but especially the rest of Africa, I would say you have little attacks coming from the local network. Is still going to be provided from the outside. The South Africa is a bit different due to the amount of potential target for botnet that you have. So 3 numbers here. So the first one is 26. So 26 million requests per second. So that was in 2022 the largest HTTP DDoS attack that we've seen happening. So the second one, 201, is also million requests per second. So that was a year later. That is the largest attack that we've seen in 2023. So that's a 773% increase year on year. So we had we've seen the attack growing and growing, and this rise of hyper volumetric attack are more and more common. So that 201 is almost double the traffic that Facebook is generating on a daily basis. So that's targeting only one destination. So it is a huge amount of traffic, and we think it's linked to this rise of cloud computing platform that are used on the botnet. So, for example, to give you a reference, in 2019, so the largest attack that we seen was 3 million requests per second, and that required 1 million botnet. So a huge botnet to raise a 3 million request attack. So this attack that we had in 2023 only required 50,000 bots. So a much smaller botnet fleet, and an attack that was a lot more complex. So that was an attack that was exploiting the HTTP2 reset model. So that was a security flow, not a security flow, that was a flow in a way HTTP2 behave. HTTP2 is great, is a lot faster than HTTP1. And there is a feature that's, especially when you scroll a lot, to speed up the way the page load. So the page, the photo that let's say you didn't wish to wait to see, we'll have a HTTP2 as a way to cancel the HTTP request and then to speed up, what you want to see. So this attack was exploiting this by just sending a lot of requests and canceling straight after, and overloading your HTTP server, and at a huge scale. So hypervolumetric is definitely something more common. And the last one is an attack that we've seen earlier on this year, where a much smaller attack, with 50 million requests per second, with 13,000 different signatures. So that's where we see the rise in complexity and hyper sophisticated attacks. So we have a lot more volume and a lot more complex attacks. So, generative AI is here. The botnet are more complex. So it's more like what we see. We cannot tell for sure. It's coming is directly linked, but what we definitely have is more complex and bigger attack. So when it comes to the defense, what you have, so we know the landscape. We know what's happening out there. So what is, in terms of strategy, you have to put in place to deal with this type of threat. So The traditional model was to use DDoS hardware. DDoS hardware, you end up with the choice and almost the impossible equation where you have to, on one hand, you have to plan for something where you have no idea how big the next attack is going to be. So planning for capacity is almost impossible because you could have like a solution that will prevent you against the largest attack that we've seen, but you don't know what's going to be next year, right? The attackers don't share a roadmap, and that's a completely unknown. In terms of capability as well, so we see like new type of attack. So it means for one type of attack, you might have a device that will be able to deal with this new threat, but if it's a complete different vector, you might not be able to block this. So potentially more investment, and that's the last point, right? In terms of cost, it's completely open-ended, and you don't know what you need to plan for, and have this visibility on how you need to size your protection. So in terms of recommendations, so what you need to do, right? So first, with this large volumetric attack, you need to stop the attack close from where they generated. So you need to stop the attack at the source if you want to have the ability to block this hyper volumetric attack. That's the only chance you have to deal with that much traffic. Then you need to have a access to a threat intelligence to deal with this zero-day attack. So when there is a new threat, you need to have a platform that will react to this and put a mitigation in place, a new type of a measure to deal with this attack, and have this deploy at scale. And this scale, leveraging the platform as well is super important because you have a lot of different attack vector, and you need to have a solution that will protect against any type of attack, like whether it's a network attack or attack targeting your web services, your API, your DNS. You need to have a solution that is able to react to whatever the latest trend is and protect your entire infrastructure. And the last one, which is also very important, is the local points of presence. So we talked a lot about attacks here, but still the vast majority of your service, of your traffic, is going to be legitimate traffic. So your users consuming your services or your customer consuming your services. And local points of presence is important to provide the right level of performance. So you don't want to be protected against attack, but have all your legitimate traffic suffering from poor performance. And this is super important to have local points of presence. So you invest locally, you want to host and provide your service locally. So you want your users to have this experience, and that's why it's key to have local points of presence. And that's what we do at Cloudflare. So this is our network. So we have a very large network distributed. So we have like more than 300 points of presence, and we have like 44 points of presence in Africa. A huge network. So we're the second most connected network behind Google, and we have like almost 250 terabit per second of traffic, and that network keeps growing. So when you see these points on the map, it's really our infrastructure. So we don't use someone else's network. So when you have like a Cloudflare data center, so you have our equipment running on Linux community hardware and running our own network stack. So we control the infrastructure. We run our own software. We don't depend on someone else's technology, and then we'll provide all our services on this network. So what does it mean for you? So it means you will be protected against the largest attack, and the performance of your legitimate traffic will remain optimal. So if you have traffic like in South Africa reaching infrastructure in South Africa, it will remain in a region without crossing different continents, to be inspected and damage the performance. So in terms of option that we offer, and we are present, for example, in South Africa in the Teraco data centers. So we are in Joburg, Durban, and Cape Town, and you have the ability to connect directly to Cloudflare. So we have different options to connect to us. And one of them is to have a physical connection and being directly plugged to Cloudflare hardware. So you will remove the internet between Cloudflare and your origin infrastructure. So you can have like a increased reliability, a better performance. And in terms of provisioning as well, we've released like recently an improvement called Express CNI. So CNI stands for Cloudflare Network Interconnect, where we optimize the deployments and the provisioning of the service, so to be fully automated end-to-end. So you can generate this from our dashboard directly, and you'll be generated like a letter of authorization to order your cross-connect to your local data center provider, and the rest of the deployment will be automated from there. So that is the novelty that we bring when it comes to connected with physical interface with Cloudflare. So to wrap up, this is my last slide. So at Cloudflare, we blocked attacks. That's what we do day in, day out. So we block like 140 billion daily threats. And we see like a lot of the internet traffic coming through us. So we have a model where we have like free user and paying customers. So we have this visibility today when we carry nearly like 20% of the web today running through our network. So we have a lot of visibility when it comes to this new threat. We'll see that straight away. So to give you like a idea of scale, so last year we blocked 14 million DDoS attack. So that was for 2023. So that is an average of 1,600 attacks per hours. So that is pretty hard to comprehend, but we see a lot of this, and we have a lot of knowledge on that subject. So on that note, if you have any question, or if you want to ask later on, feel free to scan this QR code. It's linked to my LinkedIn page, and I'll be happy to take your question now or later. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Vincent. That's quite awesome. Great information. Some interesting things happening. Well, it's not really good things happening, but it's happening. To our attendees, do any of you have questions for Vincent? The floor is open. Please put your questions in the Q&A section. In the meantime, Vincent, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your presentation with us. I think it was quite an interesting thing and really gives you an idea of what's happening out there and the scale of it. Just checking here. Sorry, just checking. Yeah. And that was short and sweet, and I think this is definitely a topic that needs to be explored a bit more, and needs to be understood. But yeah, that was quite good. I am not seeing any questions, so that means you did a very good job, Vincent. So we'll give it another 2 minutes just to see if there's any last questions. Attendees, thank you so much for joining us today. We are looking forward to our next Tech Day that should be coming up in May, so keep an eye out on that. And yeah, Vincent, thank you so much again for joining us.
All right, thank you for having me. Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Goodbye.